Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year to everybody. Keith Engel here for TGI Sports Talk. Sunday, Stream of Consciousness. We got lots and lots to talk about. Want to welcome everybody watching, of course, on TGI Sports Talk, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. Please get there and subscribe on YouTube, and also certainly like and follow the show on Facebook. You can also watch us on Northeast Streaming Sports today. And every Sunday, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and the Roku channel, the Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel. You can download it for free. Please do that. Also, Let's Talk Sports here. We're live on their YouTube channel. Lots of great content on both of those channels, if you will, or platforms. So make sure you check those out. Quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. Specifically the sports corner that he does with Smoking Jim Frazier every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. And I'm scheduled to be on that show this coming Tuesday at 5:30. I believe you can catch it on Facebook as well. I'm not sure. But that's on WBVP, 12:30 a.m. and 99.3 FM in Pittsburgh. And if it doesn't air live, you can watch it later. And I'll share it to the Facebook page as well. Also, a quick shout out. Thumbs up, DDH. Good to wish you a happy new year in heaven. How about that? And also a quick shout out. I'm going to dedicate this show to my father-in-law, John Cicerani, who passed away this past week, Thursday night, Friday morning. My wife's father, obviously. Tremendous man. I met him late in my life, as my wife and I have been married only the last, we've been together since 2016. But Pops was a good guy, salt of the earth, if you will, to use some cliches, right? 93 years old, exemplary, a wife well-lived, teacher, raised a tremendous family, him and my mother-in-law. Mom, sometimes she's listening, my heart's with you. And just a good man, and I hope everybody will say a little prayer for him today. He's again, I'll sign up for his life anytime. Maybe not the last part. The last part's never pretty for any of us, but just a quick I want to give my respect to my father-in-law, who was a tremendous man, and I was told that I didn't even know him because he wasn't as healthy as he'd been by the time I'd met him, but just a good man overall, and he'll be very missed. And again, life well lived. So Godspeed, Pop. Hope you're watching the show wherever you are today. With that said, we got lots to talk about today. I got a feeling a lot of the show already is going to be based off of the FSU Georgia game yesterday, and maybe some other college football stuff. But we'll get into the NFL and Russell Wilson situation and some other things, and some Major League Baseball, whatever. The Knicks big trade. If it goes like last week, we'll spend 2 hours on one topic, and I don't care. We can. I will argue this point until I feel satisfied. I said last week, and I've said since FSU was snubbed for the playoff, do not judge that snub's credibility by what happens in the Georgia game, because they're going to get killed. And it in no way, shape, or forms impacts whether they should or should not have been in the playoff. If you still think they don't belong in the playoff, don't tell me you base it off of yesterday's game. Nothing to do. Now, there's a lot of different options here. We're going to talk about all of them. We're going to talk about why Florida State got beat 63-3, whatever the frick it was. 7. With 29 scholarship players. 2 of the 3 defensive linemen gone. A starting defensive three defensive backs, starting wide receivers, starting running backs, wide receiver, playing with a third string quarterback, 29 scholarship players. Now, that's a different topic, too, and we'll get into that as well. It's two different things. Whether they belonged in the playoff, this is not indicative of what would have happened, not even close. But those players opting out, I'm not forgiving them. They should be embarrassed that they left their teammates to go take this thrashing. And don't sit there and gloat over the fact that these kids who got left behind, most of them, a lot of them who played last night don't even have scholarships. And they're playing against Georgia, who, I'm sorry, had one player, maybe two players, of any consequence not playing this game. Now, they had opt-outs, yes. This game, you can't judge anything that happens in these bowl games other than the two that'll be played tomorrow, the semifinals. You can't judge anything that happens because these kids don't stick around. They either transfer out and they're gone to another school before their season's even ended. Well, they're not in school, but they've committed. And it's ridiculous. I know based on some of the chat this morning, and not just you guys, in our TGI Sports Talk chat, I'm looking at all night long. I'm looking at, tell us again how FSU belong. You freaking guys understand how this works? It's not the coach's fault that these kids have no character and wouldn't stick around. And the coach, Nick Saban could have coached this team last night. Kirby Smart said after the game, this system sucks and needs to be fixed. Lane Kiffin said during the week, we try to cram all this stuff into 1 month. Transfer portal, early recruiting, coaches moving and not staying with their teams, plus stacking bowl games one on top of each other. It's ridiculous what goes on in the NCAA, as usual. And I'm going to go off as long as I have to about this game and this situation. It sucks. Oh, where am I here? Good morning, CA. Good blessed Sunday to you. Rick Sherlock, good morning. Let's get it on. Rick and Kenny were doing a good lambasting of FSU last night. And no disrespect for them, they're absolutely wrong. Can't say any differently, in my opinion. I would say my humble opinion, but when people say my humble opinion, we know they're about to not be humble. I said this. I didn't wait for the game. I told you weeks ago, after the snub happened, don't judge FSU on what happens in the bowl game. You can't do that. It's not fair to this team who went out and went 13-0 in a power conference and gets left out for two teams that lost a game. Never happened before. Thank God for the 12-team playoff next year, and we won't have to listen to this BS anymore. And I don't care if they would have gone and got killed. The result wouldn't have been 63-7. If you think that's the case, then you're just not paying attention. 29 scholarship players left on this team. Starters gone all over the field, especially on the defense. Oh, man. Hey, man, Keith. Thank you, Drew, my brother-in-law, who obviously is also the son-in-law of my John Cicerani, who I just gave kudos to. And again, I'll say again, Godspeed, Pop. Morning, Kenny Gifford. You're going to get ugly here today. Some of us are lucky enough to have a great father-in-law. I was one of them. Well, yes, it's a blessing, right? Not everybody, and again, we'll be all over the place today, and we can continue to talk about anything you guys want to talk about as we did last week and most weeks. Everybody's not that lucky to marry into a family with good in-laws, father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-laws, brother-in-laws. It's a good family, and He was a big part, and obviously my mother-in-law as well is raising a tremendous family, and was proud to be, have been proud to be a part of it, and I'm proud to have known him. Afternoon, Alec. Good to have you with us over in the UK. Hope you're doing well. Good morning, Dave Gayette. Today's Bills-Patriots game should be good. I think the Patriots will give them a tussle today. Again, I don't know that they'll come out a winner a second time. They won earlier in the year, remember? They were healthier and had a different starting quarterback, who I still think got screwed, but that's a different topic. I think it'll be a good one, Dave, and I wish you luck, and I hope we beat you. If they were not going to put their best foot forward, then stay home. You can't just, well, you can stay home. And here's the thing. You don't always know when you accept the invitation who's going to be there and who's not. 29 scholarship players. Again, this is almost like Georgia playing against the best high school team in the country. Full of 5-star recruits. They would have got killed, correct? I don't think anybody would argue with that. This is not a reflection on the coach. It's not a reflection on the program. It is a reflection on some of those kids who didn't show up. You know what it's a reflection of? It's the system is awful. Kirby Smart, ton of class Kirby Smart, by the way, Rick. I've gained a lot of respect for Kirby Smart over the last couple of years. A couple blips on the radar, but for the most part, a very classy coach and individual. I watched him go up to Travis Jordan after the game and talk to him. Who, by the way, was there. But all you 29 guys or 24 guys, whatever it was, it's in the 20s, who didn't show up, at least your injured star quarterback was on the sideline in his jersey to root on his teammates. You guys couldn't even be bothered to show up and give support to your teammates. You can't even be bothered to show up. And again, who are you going to put in there? These bowl games all need to go away. If this is going to be the system, they all need to go away except for the games that count. Next year, when we got a 12-game playoff, just play those games and forget about the other 30 games. We don't need them. They do showcase the younger kids, so maybe there's some value there. They get to practice more, as we've talked about. This is the easiest bet on the board, 21.5. This game was never going to be close. Rick joked about hanging 60 on him, and I said, I don't know what I said. I wouldn't be rooting for that. I'd be rooting for Florida State. I also knew they'd get killed. And why we bash these kids that do show up and play their hearts out, I have no idea. And it's not about thrashing them 63 to whatever. I mean, again, I don't care about running up scores. I really don't. These kids went there and played their heart out. And by the way, the coach you guys want to rip for not getting these players ready, at least he's there participating when most coaches, not sure to say most coaches, the coaches that we don't rip the coaches that don't show up. I know we do sometimes, but we don't do it enough. Now we're all over the players, as am I. But the coaches set no example. The university set no example for these kids. God knows where the parenting advice they're getting. I get it. They're protecting their future. That future was built here at this and probably 4 other universities, the way with the portal works today. It's mind-boggling to me that that's the way we operate this. It's basically a professional sport. No other sport works this way. Not even in collegiate athletics. And it's gotten to be worse. You don't see teams in the NCAA tournament in basketball, kids sitting out that are going to be high draft picks. I mean, you might have the isolated instance, but I don't see that happening. Half your roster's out. Florida State, more than half of the receiving yards were not there last night. 15 of the 25 touchdowns they scored through the air were not there last night. They had running backs. They had wide receivers playing running back. And again, the result of this game and how you feel about the result of this game and whether they should have been picked is different than this opt-out situation. It's gotten out of control. And somebody's got to get a handle on it. And these kids aren't all protecting themselves for the NFL draft. Now, I think I counted 12 of the Florida State guys are entering the draft. Some of these kids have left via the transfer portal. McCord, the quarterback for Ohio State, was transferred to Syracuse before his team ever even played a bowl game. Van Dyke from Miami transferred to Wisconsin before they ever played a bowl game. And by the way, I'm taking nothing away from Missouri in their victory over Ohio State. I tried to get that in on the Mac and Jack show because Mac, I think, and I may have read it wrong, was disparaging Missouri. Their starting quarterback did play. That's a very good football team with one of the best running backs in the country. And I would have liked him if McCord was there. And Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't play either. Let me get to some more comments here. The quarterback won the championship with the third string. What? Yes. But he had all those other players around him, Kenny. And by the way, exactly, you're backing up my argument of why they belonged in the playoff to begin with. We dismiss the fact the committee takes into account the quarterback gets hurt, so they won't be as competitive. But they found a way to go out and win 2 games, including the ACC championship game against Louisville, who was ranked 14th. It isn't like they played UConn or Vanderbilt, and they found a way to win with a third-string quarterback. They dominated. The defense was dominating. Their defense was a dominant defense the whole year. So don't tell me they would not have had a chance to slow down Alabama, slow down Washington, slow down whoever. They may not have won. They might have got beat. That does not change the fact that they were deserving, depending on what your criteria is. And you can't say that quarterback, that third string quarterback who did not play well against Louisville, by the way, the rest of the team bailed him out. When you're down to 29 scholarship players in a major college football game, you are severely undermanned. I mean, we're just tone deaf. Bauer was there, but he hadn't opted out of the game. He didn't play because of injury, so it's a little bit different situation. And listen, credit to Georgia. Again, the same things I'm saying about FSU and these players. And it's not just FSU, by the way. Everybody's focused on Florida State. 86, I believe, 86 bowl teams this bowl season. Way too many, by the way. 86 out of 131. Out of the 86, only 8 didn't have players opt out. Only 8. And players that had significant contributors opt out and had double digits. Some of these were 15 and more. North Carolina, I can't read my writing. I think that's Coastal Carolina. Texas A&M, USC, BC, NC State, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Maryland, Georgia, but apparently those were all pretty much non-contributors. I wish I could read this other one. I mean, even the Final Four teams have a handful of players who have opted out. I don't think anybody that's going to affect the game, but it's out of control. Don't play these games if guys aren't going to show up. So, Kenny, it's not just you said get a better team in there. Half of the bowl games were unwatchable leading up to this week. There were some good games this week. I bet a handful of games through here when I could pick a spot, basically because the other team was undermanned. In fact, I don't think I've lost a. Oh, I did. I had no. That was a college game I haven't lost. I think I found I bet a bunch of over-unders and Ole Miss, Missouri. I don't get how a player, you don't want to play a bowl game. It could be your only chance to win any trophies. It could be. It could be, especially when we're talking about historic bowl games too. And again, they've lost some significance because they don't have the conference affiliations. They don't necessarily play into the national championships, but the Orange Bowl is a historic bowl game, right? The Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, they're part of the semifinals, so they're not as affected as much. But the Cotton Bowl, the Orange Bowl, even the Fiesta Bowl, even the Peach Bowl, some of these bowls that have been around, I don't want to get rid of. And I'm not going to give you corporate sponsors for all of them because I could care less. I mean, half of these bowl games that are being played now have only a corporate sponsor name. There isn't even a bowl affiliation, if you will. But they opt out. I understand some of the reasons they opt out because they're protecting themselves. If they're transferring, they don't want to get hurt. They'll lose that NIL money they may have signed for or the chance to play. Or if they're going to the NFL, they're protecting their monies. I don't care about any of it. As a Patriot fan, I'd love to see Marvin Harrison on my team. But I have doubts that I should be picking a guy who shows such a lack of character and lack of loyalty to his teammates. And I love Jared Versey. Great player for Florida State. But I've lost all respect for these guys. I think twice if I'm an NFL personnel guy to say we should pick this guy because he chose not to play in a game, as Alex said. In a lot of cases, it's the biggest game of their life. I have great respect for the guys who actually put themselves in the transfer portal, but still played. There's a few of them. God, it's infuriating. Thank you, CA. I appreciate the kind words there. We are wrong on one account. Florida State is nothing but quitters. I'm not sure what you're saying you're wrong about. They're not all quitters, obviously, because, guys showed up to play. Guys showed up last night knowing they were going to get their ass kicked. They could have, again, I'm sure they weren't saying that before the game. I'm sure the coaches weren't saying that before the game because you can't say that. But I doubt there was a person there that thought they weren't going to get their asses kicked. As I said, by the end of the day, you had a glorified best high school team in the country, full of 5-star recruits, which is really good in high school, playing one of the best teams in the country. And again, this result, I told you weeks ago, and I knew this would be the reaction, that the result of this game is proof that Florida State didn't belong in the playoff. And again, to Kenny and Rick, who I didn't get into a long debate because I didn't see the post last night. I didn't see him until early this morning. Not just you guys. I mean, I was reading this on message boards everywhere last night. And I got into several arguments there. So short-sighted to just say, it's got blinders on, to say this result, it's black and white. They would have gone there and got beat 67 by 60 points, but whoever they played. No. So I'm not sure what you're saying here, Kenny, and I could be misreading it. We are wrong on one account. Florida State is nothing but quitters. So you're saying Florida State is nothing but quitters. That's not true. The 24-plus guys who didn't play are quitters, yes. You can't say that about the guys who showed up to get their asses kicked. My in-laws were not very nice to me, and I didn't care. See, they're Yeah, everybody doesn't run into the same situation. And it's unfortunate that you didn't, Kenny, because it is a blessing to have that. So that's unfortunate. But your wife more than makes up for it, I believe. Dallas used all 17 players. Huh? What is that? That's a bit random, Kenny. I don't know what we got there. Please help me. Chris on Fridge. Yeah, oh my God. I got to tell you, Drew, and feel free. I know the college football doesn't, and it's probably going to dominate here a little bit. We'll get into the NFL and stuff, and I'm probably going to keep circling back to the college a lot today. So feel free to throw any baseball in there or anything else. So, I've tried to make this, and again, in the beginning, it was a stream of consciousness, and we were all over the place, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I tried to get this structure to go from this to this to this to this, and I don't want to do it anymore. I like to jump around. I had a blast last week, the last few weeks, where we kind of just went round and round about whatever came up in the room. And, I gave you guys some topics to think about. If we stayed on one topic a lot last week, and we may this week, but all comments are welcome. By the way, so Drew says he usually supports Payton's moves, but this one's confounding. Talking about message boards, as I'm scrolling through some of this stuff last night, I was checking out this one. You would be shocked at how many Braves fans think this is a great deal. What a great deal we got. They said all kinds of money. It's only going to cost us whatever. Well, Marquise Grissom, and I think that's Junior. I'm not mistaken. I think it's Marquise Grissom's son. I'm not positive. Drew, you can correct me on that. He didn't. They wanted to be the starting shortstop this year, and it didn't work out. But to trade him for Chris Sale, whose career basically ended 4 years ago, guys. This one of the best pitchers in baseball. But even when he's healthy now, Drew, he's no good. He throws 90-91 with no movement. He's going to get killed. Yankees killed him over the last 3 or 4 years. He's not going to help this team. So I have no idea what they're thinking about. None. And I don't have no idea what Braves fans are thinking about saying, hey, we got this great pitcher. How far back did you look in his career to find a good year? At least when the Yankees screwed up on Carlos Rendon, which I will forever tell you was a huge mistake. At least he had a track record, a more recent track record, that was good. But you had to look back and know that what was going to happen. Well, again, you're playing 29 against 60 plus. You got Kenny, you got running backs that are wide receivers. You got a quarterback who only played a few again, and he played with a full team and struggled against Florida State or LSU. Boy, oh boy. Louisville. They won that game because of the defense, and the defense is where both sides of the ball were severely lacking in talent last night. And because of the transfer portal and NIL, you don't have the deep, unless you're Georgia and Alabama, you aren't 2 and 3 deep in stars. And Florida State, you'll see next year they'll bounce back because they've already got some big portal movement themselves. They've got a top 10 recruiting class, but that doesn't help them in this game. You can't replace the 24 guys, 25 guys, whatever it was, that left. So this game is not in any way indicative of what would have happened if they were in the playoff. And I'm not saying they wouldn't have gone and got blown out, but it's irrelevant to my argument about whether they belong. Because my argument is the 4 most deserving teams. You went 13-0 in a power conference And say what you want about the ACC. They were 4-2, I believe, this year against the SEC, straight up. Just saying, all you SEC elitists. And you're not one of them, Kenny. But I lost my train of thought here. Oh, Power Conference champion won their last 2 games, including the championship game without their starting quarterback, a Heisman Trophy contender for the entire year, who showed up, as I said, as Brock Bauer did, to support his team, where the rest of these guys don't even show up. But a lot of those guys were sitting the bench. Yes, Kenny. A lot of them were sitting the bench. A lot. Again, I went through this before. Starting quarterback, out. Starting running back, out. 2 starting wide receivers, out. Starting tight end, out. Offensive linemen, they're missing 4, but I don't think there was any starters. Might have been 1. The defense, 2 of the 3 defensive linemen, 1 starting linebacker, and 3 starting defensive backs. Please. It's unthinkable to me that you can't see where this makes a difference. Unthinkable. But again, I don't always think straight. Chad Collins, good morning. Chad agrees with me. Look at that. You can only judge the disgrace of the NCAA. I agree. The real losers here are the fans. I don't care about anybody but the fans. The fans get, and the players, the players get cheated here as well. They get left behind. Now, I say that knowing full well when they're in the same position, they're going to do the same thing. And I really don't know what the NCAA can do, Chad, to be honest with you. I really don't. They created this monster. Well, several things created this monster, right? Big rookie contracts in the NFL created this monster. They're not taking any chances with their money. The transfer portal, that's on the NCAA. I don't know how you make a kid play, right? It's not like they sign, but I mean, they have a scholarship. Maybe what you have to do is if you do not complete your entire term with us, whether it's 1 year, 4 years, 8 years, some guys' cases, we'll take your scholarship away. Which, are you going to care if you're Jared Verse and you're going to sign a, 6-figure rookie contract? Well, you probably can't get a 6-figure. It might. You just pay it back. But some guys would, if you transfer and don't play, and we make you pay your scholarship back, the Van Dykes of the world, the McCords of the world. I know there's guys in the transfer portal for SFU. I'm just not sure which ones they are. Well, all right. Anyway, I'll pick a guy who's not in the NFL draft. Tate Rodemaker, the backup quarterback. You didn't fulfill your commitment to us. Pay me back the tuition money for the scholarship you got. It's really the only leverage the NCAA has here to keep kids playing throughout the end of the year. But then, by the way, you got to do the same with coaches. If you don't, and again, Lane Kiffin you can love or hate Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin had a great point this week when he said the NCAA is so effed up, they're cramming everything into December, the whole offseason. Because you've got early recruiting. You got all these bowl games. You got the transfer portal in overdrive. And you got coaches just leaving willy-nilly. If that's all going to go on in December, then this is what's going to happen. So if I'm going to make kids play and take their tuition money back, pay me back. Then I'm going to hold the coaches to the same thing. You can't take a job until January. or until your season's over. Can't do that anywhere else. Where else can you do that when you have a signed contract? Where else in sports can you do that? Before your season's even over, accept another job and leave. Can't do that in the NFL. Can't do that in Major League Baseball. You can't do that in the NBA. You can't do that in the NHL. You can't do it anywhere. It doesn't even happen in college basketball. Maybe there's an isolated case I'm not thinking about, but it certainly isn't rampant like it is here. And again, the NCAA sets the tone. What do you got here, CA? Luke Littler at 16 years old is amazing. I'll share the latest highlight fantasy football league chat. This year's PDC World Championship is going to finish splendidly. I'm guessing we got a superstar 16-year-old in the World Championship dart world. Thank you, Alec. I appreciate the sentiments. Never a happy time, right? I mean, I'm a person who tries to celebrate life. Celebrate the person's life. Same thing happened when my mom passed a few years ago. I react differently than other people. My grief came out in anger at other people. I spent the whole day driving home that day, about 50 miles home, screaming at people. I won't, in cars. My wife laughed. She was obviously distraught. She goes, "Why can't I be like you and just scream at people? My effing mother just died. Get out of my effing way." Oh God, I appreciate it. I like to celebrate people's lives, man, and it was a life well lived by all accounts. And the end is never the end won't be fun for any of us, right? So if we could just get rid of that part, we'd be fine. What do you got, Drew? Don't even follow college football and knew about the mass exodus. How could you miss it? Right? I'd love your yet another example of how the system is corrupt. There, I was just going to say, I'd love your opinion. It is. And you know what? Kenny goes to this point all the time, right? That just follow the money. And it's true in every sport. And NCAA, it's happened. Again, here's the problem. And I talk about this a lot. And I've loosened my stance on players in the transfer portal and the NIL because of coaches who don't have any loyalty to their program, to the kids they recruited, to the fans, to anybody. They're just loyal to their own bank account, which we all are to some extent. But now it's universities who aren't loyal to their coaches, their fans, their players, the other programs that they've been in conference with for maybe a century or more in some cases. We don't care about any of that. Chase the money. And they're going to screw up what is a great sport. And college football, whatever you think of it, these bowl games, for the most part, have not been exciting. They will start to get they started to get exciting yesterday, other than their Orange Bowl. By the way, I'll throw this out there. James Franklin, congratulations. I was all over Ole Miss yesterday because James Franklin just can't beat top 10 teams. His offense is awful. So anyway, you start Saturday during the regular season is so much better than the bowl games for the most part. And it's a superior product and a superior fan experience. Drew, you won't get this because you don't follow it, and you may not even believe me, which is fine. It's my opinion. The experience of watching games and the excitement that is in the game and surrounding the game, and even the play in a lot of examples, and I'll talk a little bit about NFL play again in a bit too, is so superior on Saturdays than it is to Sundays. I still like the NFL. I still love the NFL. Don't get me wrong, but I'm more interested in my team than other teams. I could really care less about watching 2 7-8 teams play today for a playoff spot. Similar to these bowl games where there's a bunch of 6-6 teams and even 5-7 teams because you can't find enough bowl eligible teams. But the system will be corrupted and ruined. The NFL's being ruined by NFL referees, by the NFL rule makers, by bad football play. I'll throw this out there now just because we're stream of consciousness. It's just not a word. Stream of consciousnessing it. It can't be a word. Consciousness. Maybe it is. I don't know. I said this on the Mac and Jack show that I came in and they were talking about this exciting football game last night between the Cowboys and the Lions. I saw more bad football. I saw some great plays. I saw the ball go up and down the field, and then I saw horrible play calling, horrible execution. And I don't know, how is that a good football game last night? Were you excited to watch that football game last night? There was some excitement during the game, but I constantly watched two teams shoot themselves in the foot. Oh, my God. Way too many games, Kenny. 43 games, 86. I believe it's 43 this year. The number kind of varies from in the low 40s. I think it was 43. 86 schools out of 131. We talked that there's too many NFL playoff teams, too many NBA playoff teams, too many Major League Baseball playoff teams. Well, these teams aren't alive for a playoff, obviously, but I seriously hope that when we get to the 12-team playoff, we diminish these bowl games. I mean, they do hold some value for young kids get to play. The teams get to keep practicing until their games. I get it. But it's the best players. I mean, there's nobody in the stands. Orange Bowl probably had a packed house or close to it. But you look at some of these other games that post the Pop-Tart Bowl. Seriously, even the Barstool Arizona Bowl yesterday. Who the hell's at that game? Nobody. It's to fill up ESPN's December schedule. 40 of these 43 games, I believe, were on ESPN. He just wants to keep his job. Personally, I would have refused to play. I'm trying to think where we're at here. He just wanted to keep his job. Who? Oh, God, help me out, Kenny. I don't know what we're talking about now. I'm probably too far past the comment. You would have refused to play when? I am interested. Anthony Price, good morning. And Florida State quarterback, by the way. Yeah, well, I blame the Florida State defense because I'm not blaming the quarterback because, again, his weapons were gone. If you didn't hear me earlier, Anthony, 29 scholarship players left out of 60-some probably on this team. No, I don't even know. I think it's 50-some now. The defense lost all of their stars gone. One defensive lineman, who I think recovered a fumble. Actually, no, he caused a fumble, but didn't recover it early in the game before it was a blowout. So I don't necessarily blame the quarterback because he had nothing to. He did play badly though with the full team around him against Louisville. They won because of their defense. They lost last night because of both sides of the ball. But yes, the defense is what kept them alive after Travis Jordan got hurt. And even a lot of times during the year, they had an exceptional defense in the league. Rick would have loved to have played in any bowl game for the experience. How many babies who took that ball and went home will play at the next level? Well, again, we'll find out. Specifically, again, looking at one. Hold on, I got to go up farther. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9 of the guys who sat out for North Carolina. How did I get to North Carolina? Florida State have declared for the draft. So we'll find out. And these guys one day will regret. I hope they're sitting home today. So again, there's two big differentiators here, right, in this argument. It's about Florida State and whether this was indicative of whether they belonged in the playoff, which is one thing. And then all these kids who opted out who I have no respect for. And I do believe some of them are at home, I hope, regretting the fact that they left their friends and their teammates behind to take this ass whipping. And or maybe someday when they grow up, they will regret it. Sadly, I doubt there's anybody regretting it now. So I'm saying if Florida State was in the playoffs, every player would have played. I think most likely, yes. I mean, again, there's a few players that have opted out for the 4 playoff teams, Anthony, but nobody of any consequence. There's no way Jared Versay sits out the playoff. Some kids who hit the transfer portal, maybe that weren't playing a lot, which is the case with Georgia and a lot of the players that sat out for them, might have hit the portal and opted out. So your depth depleted. But I think the stars on this team definitely would have been there. I can't think of a star on any Final Four team that's ever sat out. Again, maybe I'm missing the isolated case, but I truly believe, yeah, this would have a different team would have been playing if they were playing Monday instead of yesterday. Magnum PI. What's that? What's that about Jack's shirt this morning, Rick? Jack doesn't look much like Tom Selleck any more than I do. By the way, I'm going to go off on a little rant here. How is the new Magnum PI, how did it ever get on the air, and how is it still on TV? I refuse to watch it. I see the commercials, I turn them off. It's only one Magnum. Stop it. Oh, Alec, you're right. You're right. CA. Luke Littler could really bring new young dart players at age 16 is outstanding. So, Alec, you're a dart fan as well. Our eyes have been opened up to the world that we pay no attention here to, unfortunately, in the States. Well, CA's here in the States. I did not realize before CA became a huge contributor to our show, which I thank all of you for, by the way, as we hit the new year. Thank you very much for being such a big part of my shows. I know I thanked everybody last week, but I'll do it again this week because some of you may or may not have been here. But I want to thank all of you who come on this show specifically. This is my favorite show of the week because of this byplay. Again, we argue, we disagree, and at the end of the day, we walk away friends because that's what you're supposed to do. As grown-ups. Some people should follow that advice, right? But I thank all of you for coming into this show, participating, making it what it is. And my shows have been getting great viewerships, more and more people participating. And then after the fact, the engagement has just been off the charts the last 6 months. And growing, and some of the shows have just exploded in viewership too. So I really appreciate that from all of you. So, but since CA became a major contributor to this show, my eyes have been opened up to a lot of things. You know, I tend to be football, baseball, but there's a lot of other stuff going on out there. I never said they didn't belong in the playoffs. Now, hold on. I know that, Kenny. I know that. I wasn't sure. I wanted to be sure that you said that. Because you can't, if that's the case, you can't let yesterday's result change your mind that they didn't belong. which I thought you did in the chat this morning. If I misread that, because I was, again, just waking up when I checked that. I like to check what I've missed that you guys have posted during the night. But I said, you can't change your opinion based on the outcome of the game. So I thought you had done that. You can't. Alex Simpson, trophies don't mean it's money, and money's ruined college football. It hasn't ruined it yet, but it's very close. It's very close. Ironically enough, I think we talk about money ruining the sports. I don't think money's ruined the NFL. I think the NFL is ruining itself, and the money will disappear because the product's becoming unwatchable between the penalties, roughly the quarterback plays that aren't even there, pass interference plays. By the way, make it 15 yards like college. This is ridiculous. Throwing the ball up underthrown and get the ball down at the 2-yard line is ridiculous. 15-yard penalty. The fact that you can't hit anybody, now we've got a rule where you can't hit anybody in the hips. So I've got about a target this big here to hit somebody. Can't see my hands. This big here, and about the same in the lower half of the body to hit somebody and tackle them without being penalized. Plus bad play. Marvin Frazier is the worst of all at waiting until game time. Wonder what kind of kickback he got. Yeah, there was a few guys that waited. Some were injured, like Brock Bauer. I mean, you could say he opted out, technically, I suppose. But he did participate in practice all week, and he was an injury scratch as far as I know. Marvin Frazier, I don't know exactly what his total his agenda was. Again, don't wait until game time. It's ridiculous. And there was a few of those. There was a few of those through these bowl games that we've seen so far. Guys just waiting till the end. I don't know what they're waiting for. I mean, God, man, one last piece of advice. Look, I got to look this guy up, man. So if I look up this guy, and I can start getting dart videos along with all the other videos I get on Facebook. He'll be on the tour this next season, and it's going to be Showtime. So he's not on now. There's not an age limit in darts. I never said he didn't belong, or that would have been the score. Talked about quitting on teammates. I get that, but no, I get that, Rick. But you can't change your opinion based on the score, and the quitting on the teammates. The guys who took the thrashing are not the guys who quit, because they're probably not. I would like them to show some remorse and regret. I doubt they are. If they were, they probably wouldn't have sat out in the first place. So again, some of the comments in the chat today indicated you were happy this team got thrashed. Again, these guys that left obviously don't give a crap, so I can't beat them up for this result. I mean, I'm certainly not shocked, but I feel bad for those kids left behind, and the coaches did the best job they could do. How are you going to get a bunch of guys who have not been involved in major college football pretty much most of the year, half the team, and get them ready to play against one of the best teams in the country who's really at full speed? And by the way, I think the kid who's replacing Brock Bauer is going to pretty much pick up the ball where he drops it. Dallas used a home field refs right from the start. Look, the referees are bad everywhere. I don't think they're home field related. There were some bad calls at the end of the game. If you watched, obviously, and by the way, why? And maybe we'll hear it. I'd like to hear your guys' take on Dan Campbell. not just at the end. I don't disagree with him going for two to win the game. When the first play was called back, whether you agree with it or not, he was still going to go for it from the 7-yard line and had the ball intercepted. Unfortunately, Parsons jumped off sides, and he gets another chance, which failed. Any one of those, he could have kicked the field goal and gone to overtime. But even besides that, his decision-making, okay, it's pretty gutsy to make a fake punt like inside your 30. Great play call, though. And that one I kind of get. I didn't like some of the places he didn't take points early in the game down inside the 10-yard line. I believe they were down inside the 10 twice and came away with no points because he went for it each time, went for a touchdown. You guys ripped the Oregon coach, Dan Lanning, for doing that at the end of the game. I understand doing it at the end of the game. To do it all game long, and I understand that's his MO. He's aggressive. He goes for it on fourth down more than anybody in the NFL. But I thought his decision-making was a bit reckless last night as well. As far as that play, I don't know what happened. There's video of 68 and 70, both of them going up and talking to the referee. I didn't see 68, like his head moving like he was talking to anybody. And I know somebody, I think Jack made a comment today that, regardless, it didn't really affect the play. Sure it did. I mean, the referee's got to say 68's eligible and the defense acts accordingly. Now, he didn't say that because he said the kid didn't report. So I don't know. I'm sure we'll hear more. And both sides have different versions of this. The NFL and the referee say he didn't say he was reporting eligible. 70 was. But again, to your point, Kenny, this is not a Dallas, By the way, I want to bring up something else with this. So I don't think it was referees. The referees are awful game in and game out right now. And it's not all their fault. Some of the rules are so stupid and left open to their own interpretation and subjective and whatever adjectives you want to use, that they're putting them between a rock and a hard place. So I don't think they used home field ref. That's how the NFL does it. But I will say this, Kenny. I know you don't like Dak, but Dak has played some pretty good football at crunch time the last 2 weeks. Now, they lost to Miami, but if you watch that game, Dak did pretty much everything he could do to win that game. He took them down the field. I knew they were going to lose by field goal. But he took them down the field and got a touchdown they had to have to win the game on the road. He can't do more than that after that. What else can he do? And he played pretty well last night. I mean, I don't think even some of the bad football I was talking about was attributable to him. He made a play not a lot of quarterbacks are going to make, maybe the Lamar Jacksons of the world. But I can tell you, I was watching a game with my stepson, and he's telling me that he thought Jared Goff was as good as Dak Prescott. Well, he's not. And he showed last night. Jared Goff was terrible last night. Terrible. And he would never have been able to make that play where Dak almost got sacked for a safety, and then he gets CeeDee Lamb for the long 92 or 98-yard touchdown. 98 yards, right? Maybe it was 92. But anyway, I mean, that's a great play by Dak. I mean, he's shown me he's got to win some playoff games. But you can't attribute either them almost losing last night or the loss to Miami the week before. By the way, Miami hasn't beat a winning team either. So I don't hear them getting ripped the same way as Dallas does. Again, the day I defended him, he went out and played horrendous, right? Against who did they play that day? Who did I play that day when I defended him so aggressively, if you will, on this show? Oh, God. We're halfway in, guys. You guys are carrying it, doing a good day. It's a good day in the NFL for those who say Vegas casinos and TV networks run the game. The Cowboys bring the big money for them. They do. They do. And the networks do run the show as far as scheduling and whatnot. I mean, do I think games are scripted? People got to stop this nonsense, too. And it's getting more and more prolific. I can't scroll through Facebook the day after an NFL game's been played where I can't see somebody posting video of here's why the NFL is scripted. It's BS, and if you believe that, stop watching the games, please. And when you say you're going to stop watching the games because of scripted, the games are all scripted or whatever reason, because of political stances or whatever. When you say you're going to stop watching the game, please stop watching the game. And I'm not falling for it when you make a post on Facebook because you just happen to be flipping through the channels, but you see every important play of every important game. So those of you, and it's not you guys, I'm talking to a broader audience, obviously, don't watch the games. And when you say you're not going to watch the games, please don't watch the games. By the way, Drew, I missed 2 games again this week, which is not going to affect my standing anyway. But I just forgot all about, I've lost track of the days. With the holidays and, the deal with Pop, I just lost I've lost track of the days entirely here. So, and working all week and it's been a screwy week. So I even opened up the app to put in it because I told Eric because we were sitting down to watch the Cowboy game. I said, oh, geez, I didn't even put any picks in. And I still didn't put the pick in for the Cowboy game. Oh, what do we got here? Kenny, easy to stop the portal. It's not easy. I mean, well, yes, it's easy. You can change the rules. Then if they decided to skip out, they would need to pay it back. Well, no, I could keep the portal. And I will also say if you don't stay, you just change the times they can hit the portal. The portal itself, listen, I don't like the portal necessarily, and I was a very staunch objector. That might be a new word too. Of that in the NAL, and I said it was a bad combination. It's proved to be that. But with everything that's gone on with coaches and universities just chasing the money, I have a hard time getting on the kids. Now, it would change some rules. I don't think you ought to be able to be like JT Daniels and go from USC to Georgia to West Virginia to Rice and do it 4 times. And now you got kids like Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma just chasing NIL money, going from, I believe, UCF to Oklahoma for NIL money and a starting job, to Oregon for even more NIL money. So I would change the rules a little bit, but you don't need to do away with it. Just change the timing of it. The portal's not open until the season's over. Then if you leave, I take my money back. There's got to be there's no consequences at all for players showing lack of good judgment and sitting out plays or games. Now, the NFL draft part, you're probably never going to be able to control. Guys who want to protect themselves, they're not going to do it. The 12-team playoff, I think, will slow this down because at least those 12 teams shouldn't have massive defections before the games are played because they're all going to have a realistic chance to play for a championship. Some will get blown out, but they're going to want that chance to play. I see you down there, Neil. Welcome. As I alluded to, Jerry Jones paid for some good officiating. Oh, gosh. I mean, look, you got to stop. You got to stop. Referees can be bad and not be getting paid off. You understand this, right? I went through this. All the years the Patriots were good. And now the Patriots aren't good. And I see referees and, because we'd see the memes, the hilarious memes of the New England Patriots team photo, and it'd be a picture of, 24 referees. But now that they're no good, we moved on to the Chiefs. We moved on to the Cowboys. And by the way, don't count the Chiefs out. I'm telling you, playoff experience matters. Now they're going to have to play some games on the road, which they haven't had to do a lot in the playoffs. But when the games are going to really count, this team's going through a tough time right now. But I saw great Patriot teams go through these struggles and still be there when it mattered. So I don't think they're paying them off. And by the way, Neil, I'm going to get your comment. I think Neil, in fact, let me go to Neil's comment and then I got something to say. Because I think Neil's a Cowboy fan. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. And if you're not a Cowboy fan, I apologize because you'll probably be very angry. But I think Neil's a Cowboy fan. McCarthy and Quinn both made bad decisions late. But I'm going to tell you, Dan Campbell made bad decisions all game long. And then even when they did make, if you want to say some of the game management decisions were okay, then the play calling, which is Ben Johnson, who's just, he's the hottest assistant out there now, maybe next to Dan Quinn. But McCarthy didn't fumble the ball out of the end zone. That was CeeDee Lamb. Both these teams should have scored probably 2 more touchdowns apiece last night because they moved the ball. And then I'm really not blaming McCarthy. Again, they didn't lose the game. I'm talking like they lost the game. This team is better this year with McCarthy calling the plays than it was last year, for sure. And the defense is really good. I mean, and Jared Goff is not nearly as good as Prescott. Jeez. But while we're talking about the Cowboys, and before I forget, I will give Jerry Jones kudos for finally, decades too late, giving Jimmy Johnson his due and putting him in the Ring of Honor. I would like to hear him explain, other than pettiness, why it took so long. But I thought Jerry finally made the right decision. I thought Jimmy Johnson showed a lot of class in his remarks, not only about the Cowboys, but about Jerry Jones last night. And I think it's well overdue. And he looks like he could still coach at 80 years old. So kudos to Jimmy Johnson there. Florida State coach, and he should have refused the invitation. Well, it's not up to him. He has input. It's up to the university. Very few teams refuse those. Notre Dame, your team, has probably done it more than anybody. And in some cases, they've done it because they felt, it was beneath them to go play in a certain bowl game. But I can't. Again, why should he cheat? Because he's got 24 selfish players, some of them his biggest stars. Why should he cheat the other kids of a chance to go play in the Orange Bowl? A historic bowl. Whether you think the trophy's important or not, Kenny, it's an historic bowl game. Why cheat those other kids out of that experience? They're going to get their asses kicked. They all probably knew it. Boring NFL football. Goff, 20 targets of Brown, Laporte, and 7 other players. Laporte, by the way, I kept hearing about how good Laporte was last night. And while they're praising him, I watched him totally whiff a block that caused a 5-yard loss. That was in the first half. He dropped balls. Prescott, 25 targets to Lamb and Cooks, 12 to 5 others. I'm guessing you're using, I'm not sure exactly the context because they didn't move the ball around, I guess. Or he did. It is boring football. Regardless, when I watch mistakes after mistake, when I see two teams score, it's 7-3 when it ought to be like 21 to whatever, 21 to 17. So I think you're disagreeing with my boring football, or you're using this. The fact that he targeted 20 times to his best two players, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly where we're going here, Drew. I will stand by my comments if it's the other way, that bad NFL football is boring NFL football to me. Put the ball in the end zone when you're in position to do so. And I'm not blaming the coach for the freaking the wide receiver dropping the ball and fumbling it through the end zone. There were some bad plays. Transfer portal. Neil. I did say welcome, didn't I, Neil? I think I did. Transfer portal should only open up after the season. Totally agree. These malcontents are ruining things for their teammates. Again, preaching to the choir there. Spent the first hour of this show preaching the same thing. And the last few weeks, these guys show no character in my mind at all. No, again, no remorse for the people they leave behind to get their asses kicked. But again, who are their role models? The coaches who just come and go willy-nilly and don't show up for bowl games when they take a new job. So that, by the way, close the transfer portal till the season's over. Agree. And this is Lane Kiffin's argument, by the way. All this is going on. Early recruiting, transfer portal, coaches moving. I missed some. He talked about something else too. And the bowl games. Oh, yeah. And all the bowl games stacked on top of each other. And this is all happening within a month's time. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. The portal needs to close until after the season. Agreed. Coaches can't be talked to by other organizations until the season's over. In the NFL, in the NBA, or MLB, whatever, any of those. It's tampering if you talk to somebody during the season. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but you don't see NFL coaches taking another job unless you're Chuck Fairbanks back in the day. I did find my exception. Chuck Fairbanks for the Patriots, 1978, took the job at Colorado before the season was over, was going to finish out the season to his what's the word I'm looking for? In fairness to him, he was going to finish out the season. They told him go away, and then he did come back and coach in the playoffs, and they went out in the first round. Again, I'm going back 45 years here, guys, but again, I did find an example. You shouldn't be taking another job while you got one. In this type of situation, the real world is different. You got a contract, you ought to be freaking honor it. Keep doing my thing. Thank you, Anthony. Listen, we come here, and I just said this a few minutes ago, right? I think you heard it. We come here, we argue back and forth, and it's fun. That's what we do here. And I love it. I have respect for every one of you guys. Sometimes I'll look like I don't respect your opinion because I don't agree with it. Doesn't mean I don't respect your right to have it, no matter how wrong you are. So money changes hands, but the NFL doing Saturday games. So money changes, but NFL, I'm not sure what we are talking about here. So many changes, but the NFL doing Saturday games, I'm for it. It's funny. My stepson Eric brought up a good point last night too. With these games being moved to a bunch of days, and now you get to, I don't know, it's almost the last month of the season. So all year long, you've got Thursday and Monday night. So he's talking about the NFL ticket to give you some context. He got it this year. I haven't had it in years because to me, it was a ripoff, and my team was on TV every week anyway. as we move in last month of the season, so Thursday and Monday nights are not included in the package. So all year long, you're not getting every game. Okay. You get to Thanksgiving. There's 3 games on Thanksgiving. You don't get those. So now you don't get the Thanksgiving games. You don't get the Monday night games. So now you got 4 games those weeks you don't have any access to. You're running to now where you got games on Thursday. You got 3 or 4 games on Saturday. Game 2, maybe last week there was games all on Christmas. None of those games are on the ticket. Now they're all on national TV, so you get to watch them. It isn't like, but you paid for those games and they're not on the ticket. I don't think they're giving you a rebate. We talked about some of this last week, and we were talking about it last night. And actually, Eric showed some of the sentiment that you guys have shown. Kenny, I know, talked about he'll never pay for a game. We're heading towards a time where you're going to pay for the best games are not going to be on free TV. There's a game coming up. I don't know when. It must be next week. That will be exclusively on Peacock. One of the first round playoff games will be on Peacock, and I don't believe is a free version. You already have Thursday Night Football on Amazon. Now, any Amazon customer had access to those games this year. Next year, it'll be Prime. If you're not a Prime subscriber, you're not getting that content. Oh, and by the way, speaking of Amazon Prime, all of Amazon Prime commercial free, except for the football games, of course. If I don't pay $2.99 a month, on top of my Prime membership, I will now get commercials during all of their content, movies, original programming. The never-ending freaking game. But you do look at this is the world we're living in. Again, another reason the NFL is shooting itself in the foot. They are chasing the money, and in the end, it's going to cost them money. The billions of dollars they're getting from the networks, over-the-air networks, isn't enough for them. Not to mention the money they get from YouTube for the NFL ticket. Now we got to put games on Peacock and Prime, and Apple TV plans on getting involved. And there's another one. There's another player I heard getting involved. So we're either going to watch games on 10 different streaming services, or we're not going to watch games. The NFL's betting you'll pay. I'm betting viewership goes down. Kenny, I could have insinuated that they didn't belong only because of the crying. I believe they should have stuck it out and beat Georgia. Listen, that part I don't disagree with at all. They could have stood proud. Right. But again, I'm not getting on these kids that stayed. That was part of my issue, I guess, with some of the comments that I missed last night here on the TGI Sports Talk page and in some of the chat rooms, was disparaging the kids that stuck around. Not their fault. It's the kids who left. It's a great topic. And I mean, again, we can move on to other stuff. You guys bring anything you want. We'll discuss it. And we can keep going back. This is a topic that, is not going away. And it's going to get brought up week after week. If you're not in the game to win trophies just for money, you're not making my team, Kenny. Well, I don't disagree with you, Alec. Unfortunately, money is prolific throughout sports, even amateur sports now, right? With the NIL pretty much running amok. The money even drives their decision to stay. So you got kids you would think, oh, I'm going to stay for my senior year, my junior year, or next year past my senior year, or whatever we're talking about. It's rarely driven by the fact that I want to chase a trophy. Sam Hartman's a great example. He didn't go to Notre Dame. Well, I mean, I'm sure he went to Notre Dame hoping he could win national championship. Don't get me wrong. But he also got paid $1 million in NIL money, and he hoped to improve his draft status, with none of which did not happen. Sam Hartman probably will get drafted in the same exact spot he would have got drafted last year. But he made more money by staying in college than he would have made in the NFL this current season if he made a team. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. I want guys who want to chase championships and not money. I agree. Unfortunately, one doesn't come along without the other anymore. You know, I mean, even the guys that I commend. For years, I've commended my championship quarterback who brought 6 Super Bowls to my team for the fact that he would always restructure his contract and give money back. But Jesus, I mean, it's easy to do when you're making $15 million a year, $20 million a year. You know, so even the guys I give kudos to, you know, it's not like it's totally altruistic either. But I get your point, Alec. The PDC gives the JDC Youth Champion into. Oh, I see. So similar to, well, it's even different, but similar to the Masters and whatnot. The amateur champion that year gets to play. I think he's got to be of age, though. I think they get to play in the U.S. Open. I think U.S. Open and Masters both let the U.S. amateur champion play in those tournaments. Maybe the PGA as well. So that's cool. Is Georgia like the 49ers? You can plug any quarterback into that offense. I don't know that that's actually true, though, Anthony. It might be. Listen, Carson Beck played very well this year. I don't think he played as well as Stetson Bennett played last year. But again, the parts were not as good as the parts Bennett had around him. And for the 49ers, I don't think you can plug any quarterback in there. Listen, Brock Purdy's got probably the best weapons in total of anybody in the NFL. So he's got that going for him. But, you know, Jimmy Garoppolo had those same weapons. Well, maybe not McCaffrey. Trey Lance had those same weapons last year before he got hurt, and he didn't play for crap. So, no, I don't think you can. I say that you can plug any quarterback into any system. Tom Brady was a system quarterback in a lot of people's minds for a long time. Joe Montana was a system quarterback in people's minds. You still got to be able to be proficient in that system. You got to have some talent, and you got to have some brains. Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. Do I think he's a great quarterback? No. I mean, Brock Purdy probably was the NFL MVP before he threw 4 interceptions last week and played badly on a national stage at home against a potential Super Bowl opponent. He had a bad game. Tom Brady had games where he threw 4 interceptions as well. And I am not comparing Brock Purdy to Tom Brady, so please, there's been enough of that, and I won't do it. But again, I don't think that San Francisco offense is all that great with Sam Darnold in there. I don't think it's all that great when Trey Lance was in there. And I don't think it'd be as good with Jimmy Garoppolo in there. Because now they throw the football. Remember when Garoppolo was there? And they had all these weapons except, I believe, McCaffrey. He threw the ball 8 times in an NFC Championship game. 8 times. In today's NFL, that's not showing a lot of trust in your quarterback. Man, we're flying by today. The time is flying by. Great show. You guys doing a great job. From what I saw, 68 and another player. So we're back to the line game. 68 and another player talking to the ref. And when 70 comes in to report, he is walking away from home. And you watch, he puts his hands up to shush him. I'll have to watch it again. I don't remember. He's walking away from him and he puts his hands up to shush him. Who put his hands up to shush him? The referee? Well, 70 was reported in as eligible. 68 was not. So I couldn't. I mean, again, there were two guys, 68, one of them talking to the referee, and then 70 comes in. Yes. Now, maybe there was some confusion. Maybe 68 said he was eligible. Then no, 70 came in and said, no, I'm eligible. I don't know. Again, do I think it was the right call? I don't know. I don't have any way to say it. All I'm saying, and I'm not defending the referees here. I'm just saying, I'm not jumping. You see, again, I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm not a guy who thinks referees get paid off. I'm not a guy who thinks the NFL is scripted, right? I'm an Occam Razors guy. The simplest answer is almost always the right one. And I don't think any of that is going on. If I did, I wouldn't watch. Quite frankly, I would never watch. So again, the Bills. Okay. I don't know what that one's about, but back to the referees. I'm not saying the referees are not terrible. I'm not saying they didn't blow that call because I don't know. We'll probably find out. There's probably audio somewhere we'll hear. Was there anything else? So you brought up I want to throw a couple other things out there. I know the NBA is not important to you guys, but if you are Knicks fans like I am, I found the trade yesterday very interesting. Abu Dhabi coming to the Knicks for Barrett, and I just want to throw a couple things out there for potential topics. And I'm looking at baseball to get Drew more involved here. Not much to chat about. Yankees and Mets losing out on pitchers right and left. Giolito, who I don't want, goes to the Red Sox. Frankie Montas goes to the Reds. Don't want him anyway. The whole Wander Franco thing is just getting weirder and weirder, and I just don't think you're going to see this guy play any Major League Baseball anymore. So, again, not a lot going on in baseball other than the sales story. So, but the Yankees and Mets, man, lots of holes to fill. So those topics can be talked about. Let me throw a couple things out, and I'll get back to your comments because you guys are doing a great job. We don't get to this while we're talking about the NFL, and we can go back and forth. We can stay in college. We can come back to the NFL. Russell Wilson, done. Has Sean Payton treated him correctly? You saw Sean Payton go off on Wilson the other night. I'm reading a lot of articles where Sean Payton has not treated Russell Wilson very well. And in a way, I don't know if you ever saw the movie, I think 1-on-1 was the name of it, with Robbie Benson, where he gets a basketball scholarship to a big university, which I think was thinly veiled to be UCLA. But then the coach tries to run him off. And is that what Sean Payton's been trying to do here, is run off Russell Wilson because he won't renegotiate his contract, and they want to take some clauses out where they wouldn't have to pay him in 2025. Should have thought about that for you, but Sean Payton didn't trade for him, in quite fairness. I think it's clear Russell Wilson is probably not the quarterback that he was. You look at his raw numbers, they're not terrible. The yardage is really poor, but his touchdowns to interception ratio is better, but he's not the quarterback he was. The arm strength isn't there. The improvisation isn't there. So we can talk about that here in the next 30 minutes. We can continue with the stuff that we're talking about, and I will come back to your comments in a second. And I want to talk about Flacco and the Browns. Joe Flacco is playing some great quarterback right now. The Browns have got a great defense. Are they a contender in the AFC? Miami's got flaws. We've seen Buffalo's flaws. We've seen Kansas City's flaws. There's not a great team in the AFC. Can the Browns make a Super Bowl run? So a couple other things. And then there's Jimmy Johnson, Ring of Honor. I'm sure we're happy with that. Neil's probably got a comment coming up about what I asked him about the Cowboys. And then, of course, there's any of these other college stuff we can talk about. Gabriel was a starter already. What a carpetbagger. He's there for money. I agree. He was a starter. He was a starter at UCF too, by the way. He might have lost his job there through injury, but Um, you're going to see more of this, though, Neil. I mean, McCord was a starter. He left to go to Syracuse because they said there'd be an open competition, so it might be a little different situation. But Dylan Gabriel had a great year with Oklahoma this year, and he's definitely a carpetbagger. For any of you young guys who don't know what that term means, I'll have Neil post the definition. I don't know if that term's still used or not, but it certainly fits. And having lived here in the Northeast and seen all the rug makers, the Noel Haskell's of the world, carpetbag their way to the South for better tax deals, I get it. But he's not the only one. There's other starters, too, that are moving on for more money. And it's only going to get worse unless some kind of, control is put in. And please, stop calling for the government to get involved in this, because what are they going to do? Except make it worse. Do you remember when kids couldn't get a tattoo or sell an autograph? Yeah, well, NIL changed all that. I mean, part of NIL, and it's funny, people forget what NIL was even about. The lawsuit that actually brought this into play was filed by Ed O'Bannon. He played for UCLA back in the early 90s, I want to say, basketball. And they used his likeness, as they did all players, in a video game. Whoever it was, EA Sports, I don't know. But the lawsuit was over them using his image and his name and his likeness, basically. So there you go. There's the acronym and why it's that. But it wasn't about being able to, sell your name for advertising. It was more about if your likeness was used in a video game, basically you'd get paid for it. It wasn't to open up Pandora's box and you could just get paid money to come to a school and play football. That wasn't what this ruling was all about. And like everything, especially when you get involved with the NCAA, it gets bastardized into something it's not. It should have been. Sure, if they're going to put kids, and some of the video games that I'm aware of don't do that. They use different names. They don't use the guys' names, or didn't. So if they were going to use Ed O'Bannon's or current players' names and likeness, well, then they should get paid for it. But that has nothing to do with football, playing football and getting paid for it, which is what the NIL has become. Just an income stream. Not because somebody took your name and likeness and used it against your will. Yeah, so I do remember those days. Tattoo gate. Well, I think you could get a tattoo, Rick, but you couldn't pay for it, right? The whole Jim Tressel, Ohio State debacle. What a bunch of nonsense. Today, that'd be nothing. Jim Tressel was chased out of Ohio State and out of NCAA football for good, basically, over a tattoo. Unbelievable. Jim Boeheim suspended 3 games because of buying kids hamburgers during the blackout period. By the way, speaking of Harbaugh, and I wish John DeLon was with us today, I find it very interesting, and I don't see the article in front of me right now, but there's an investigation, another NCAA investigation going on that does not involve, because remember, when I talked about the signal stealing, code breaking, whatever you want to call it, code breaking is okay, signal stealing is bad. And I said, bullshit. Everybody does it. Everybody, if they're not doing that, they're doing something else trying to get an edge. Well, there's a new NCAA organization because there's this software company that houses all this information that schools can use to help, improve their program, improve a lot of things. There's film there. There's this there. There's a lot of stuff that's housed there, a lot of data, including game footage, I believe. There's an investigation going on, and no schools are mentioned, but it's pointed out that Michigan is not part of this investigation, except the fact that their information was stolen from this company. Programs have illegally accessed this software and taken data that they did not belong to them to try to get an edge. So again, I will tell you once again, if you don't think everybody's too strong. Most football programs, baseball teams, whatever, are looking for advantages to get an advantage any way they can. You got your head buried in the sand. So this will be now 2 times Michigan has had the same things that they're accused of used against them, but that doesn't matter. We barely know about it. I read it in an article that was buried in the Athletic. But we don't talk about that because it doesn't fit the narrative that we want to express. That Jim Harbaugh is the boogeyman and has to be chased out of freaking town. So anyway, there's some things you can talk about for the next 25 minutes, 24 minutes. Kenny says, what I see is players entering the portal and then sit. If they go that way, the penalty should be 1 year of eligibility. Or take away the money or make them pay for the year they spent at that school. The portal makes sense in some cases, right? Your coach leaves, you should not have to sit out. But I think you're right, Kenny. Again, before the transfer portal, you could transfer, but you had to sit it out a year unless there was extenuating circumstances, which was rarely granted. But if your coach leaves, I don't know, there's some other monumental event in your life, then I think you should be able to transfer without sitting. But the way it's done now and the timing of it is terrible. And making them sit doesn't cost them any money. I might reimburse me for the $140,000 of tuition I gave you for free. By the way, speaking of the portal, one thing I will tell you, and I don't think I'd seen it. If you watch college football, you see the Fansville commercials that Dr. Pepper does, and they're awesome. They're awesome. If you skip through commercials and you get up to do whatever you do, make sure you sit down and watch the Fansville commercials. They're off the charts, witty, and they have one about the transfer portal, which is hilarious right now. And it's literally like a science fiction portal that's sucking people into it. And if you haven't watched the Fansville commercials, check them out. You can probably Google them all. And the Boz, by the way, is the sheriff in the town, and I think it's pretty cool. I'm not a big commercial guy. These are very good, by the way. Best compliment I was given as a soccer referee was, you're not event a cheat ref. You're just. I think what he's saying. I think the compliment was he's not a cheat ref. He just sucks. So, to your point, refs can just be really, really bad. Yes, these things are, just like players can be really bad and make horrible plays, and the games aren't fixed. Referees can make horrible plays and they're not getting paid off. That's a great analogy, Alec. Thank you for that. I know you can't worry about the blind mice on the field. Right. And you know what I always say, and I said this, and I've been very consistent. I've complained about referees' calls against my teams. I have never once, and if you guys can come up with an example, show me the tape. I have never once blamed a loss the Patriots had in bad losses in Super Bowls, conference championship games, any game. I've never blamed the Patriots. Never blamed the referees for them costing them a game. You don't let the referees beat you. Get ahead by enough that you don't get beat by the referees. It's always been my motto. Again, bad calls get made, and I will complain about bad calls, but you'll never hear me say, the referee screwed me today. I've never done it. And I've commented, on posts where I saw it was said about my team getting screwed. No, you screwed yourself by putting yourself in position to get screwed. Not sure what happened to the Cowboys' run blocking. God, that offensive line was terrible last night, Neil. And quite frankly, Prescott didn't have clean pockets to pass out of it a lot of the night. He did a lot of his damage on the run, or on the move. That CJ Lamb, what's his name? CeeDee Lamb? What's his name? I'm getting the second initial wrong, probably. That touchdown was indicative of, what he can do and how the mobility of the quarterback. I don't know that Tom Brady makes that play. Aaron Rodgers might. Some of the more mobile quarterbacks today might. But to the point of comparing the two quarterbacks last night, as we were doing while watching the game, I said Jared Goff is not even on close to the same level as Dak Prescott. That play is an example of why. How far does MCC? How far does MCC? I don't know what that means, Alec. Help me out. Jerry Jones is a two-faced, you could have said the rest of it, Kenny. He is. Jerry Jones, and I thought it very interesting last night. So Jerry Jones chased Jimmy Johnson out of Dallas because he thought Jimmy was getting too much credit for what happened when they won 2 Super Bowls in a row. And I got to tell you, there's some good footage out there of Troy Aikman, by the way, during the Barry Switzer years, screaming, coming off the field, screaming, not yelling at Barry Switzer, but making it clear those two guys did not like each other. But I thought it interesting last night when Jimmy was talking. That's why I say Jimmy Johnson has a lot of class. He said we. He was always talking about we. You and I built that team. And maybe it was a group effort. Probably was. But Jerry Jones felt Jimmy Johnson got too much credit, and that's really what happened and why Jimmy got chased out of town when you want to break it down to its simplest factors. So you're right. I've never liked Jerry Jones. Do you think it's a coincidence that they've won 1 Super Bowl and that was with Jimmy Johnson's players? I don't think they won it because of Barry Switzer. No disrespect to Barry Switzer, great college coach. They lost after Jimmy left. They lost an NFC Championship game to the 49ers the next year, then won a Super Bowl. Mostly due to Neil O'Donnell quarterbacking the Steelers in my mind, but still, they won 3 out of 4 years. They were all Jimmy's players. You think it's a coincidence that since Jerry's been left to his own devices, I've said this forever, you can get on the coaches, you can get on the players, you can get on anybody you want. But as long as Jerry Jones is the GM of that team, they're not winning anything. They haven't won a thing in 30 years because of Jerry Jones. Oh, how far does McCarthy have to go to avoid the sack this season? It's a great question. I do think the team is better. And I think they could win the Super Bowl this year because there's no great team out there. 49ers showed last week they've got their own issues. And maybe it was just a blip on the radar and Brock Purdy. This wasn't all Brock Purdy's fault, though, by the way. That defense didn't play great either. I think he may have to get to the NFC Championship game to keep his job, possibly. But again, I'm going to tell you that the problems in Dallas for the last 30 years haven't been about coaches. I mean, they haven't always had the best coaches. But Jason Garrett wasn't a horrible coach. Mike McCarthy's not a horrible coach. He's won a Super Bowl. I mean, what's the common denominator here for 30 years of not winning? An owner who thinks he's a GM. FSU got money for just showing up to the Orange Bowl. There is that too. That's a great point. The university and the rest of the ACC. Don't forget this money. That's a great point, Neil, that we have not really touched on as far as, one reason FSU won't back away is there's money involved. And it's not just them. The ACC shares in all of that bowl revenue that's paid out to the teams. It's split up amongst all the schools, not just for the Orange Bowl, but any bowl the league has representation in. One of the reasons Notre Dame's never wanted to go into a league. Well, that's a very good point. Excellent point. It's not historic. Nobody will pay any attention to it in a week. I didn't say this game was historic. The Orange Bowl is an historic bowl game. It's been around for 100 years, or maybe. Rose Bowl, it's an historic game. That game is not historic. That's not what I'm talking about. But these are bowl games that have been around and meant something for decades. The Orange Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, which was the first one to be diminished. And to a lesser extent, some of the, I'm okay keeping around the Peach Bowl, the Sun Bowl, whatever. Let me see something. I want to see how long this has been around. The Orange Bowl. Come, I can't find. I just want the Wikipedia for the Orange Bowl and find out how long they've been around. I want to get back to your Orange Bowl location. Previous 1935 was the first Orange Bowl. That's what I'm talking about. Certainly not last night's game. Historic. And now these bowl, again, with the playoff and whatnot, these historic, yes, bowl games have been diminished because they're part of a rotation, which they'll come back into play and be more important now with a 12-team playoff. But with the four teams, only two of them have really meant anything all year long. They did show up. They got off the bus, and some guys were in Florida State uniforms last night, so they got paid. They showed up enough to get paid, which you only got to get off the bus to do. And again, Rick, stop. Now, again, if your comment about did they show up is about the 24 players who didn't show up, then yes. But please don't take your wrath out on the kids that showed up to play. They had no chance. I didn't see them quit. They played hard. At least while I was watching. But there's no way that team could have beat Georgia. There's no way that team could have beat most of the Division I football teams. It would be good to have the bowl games early in the season, mid-season, and have the playoffs at the end of the season. There's been talk about a mid-season. I don't think you can do it, Anthony. There's been talk the last couple of years about moving the bowl games to the preseason before I shouldn't say preseason, whatever, week 0, play the bowl games. But how do you determine who, are they going to have any significance then? How do you determine who's going to play in them? Last year's conference championships. Maybe in that regard, you could go back to the historic, yes, I'm going to use the word again, affiliations, right? The Pac-12 and the Big Ten and the Rose Bowl. The Big 12 and an independent in the Orange Bowl. The SEC and an independent, I would say independent, not affiliated team, and the Sugar Bowl. Maybe the champions from the past year get to play in that week 0 game. And then you add some luster to week 0 as well, and you get some big matchups early in the year that will impact the college football season. So there's some validity to that. And maybe you'll see it with the 12-team playoff. Maybe they'll expand it to my 16 at some point. My 16, I'd be going to suit again. And then you can do away with some of these. I don't need the Pop-Tart Bowl. Oh, God. I don't need the Barstool Arizona Bowl. Dean said it best. The ones that go into the portal are losers, and you don't want them. Wait a minute. I do know Dean said this, but Dean turned his roster over. He turned over 75% of his roster last year. You can't bring in that many recruits. Where did they come from? The portal. So he's using the portal, but ripping the guys that he brought in as losers? Or it's only the guys he loses are I have to see this whole. I saw this quote somewhere, but I haven't found the source of it and the context it was said in. I don't think all kids that go in the portal are losers. And I don't think Dean is. If Dein said it this exact way, then he's being a hypocrite because he's used the portal to great advantage. As have many teams. And by the way, one of the reasons Clemson and Clemson, I'll say specifically, South is because Dabo won't use the portal. He won't use it. I'm sure he's brought a couple guys in it, but he won't use it like Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's the king of the portal. Ole Miss is on the precipice of being a contender for a national championship now that it's open to 12 teams every year. Because Lane Kiffin has grown as a coach, a person, and he knows how to use the rules that are available to him. Bobby Petrino leaving for Arkansas and taping a letter to the lockers of his players. Yeah. Oh, Bobby Petrino. That's another good example of, yes. So there's two NFL coaches. I knew there would be a couple that I wasn't thinking about. But Bobby Petrino certainly showed himself his true colors and showed himself to be a scumbag after he left the Falcons more than once. Didn't Saban do it also by taking the Alabama job? He didn't. No. Well, look, he didn't take the job till the season was over. He said repeatedly he was not taking the job. Do I think he probably wasn't talking to Alabama? Now, remember, I said guys had probably had conversations. I'm not naive enough to think they aren't talking. They shouldn't be. But it's not another NFL team, so there can be no tampering that I'm aware of. But Saban did not announce he was leaving Miami until that season was over. In fact, one of the things he gets ripped for in Miami is the fact that he spent, the last month of the season denying he was, even interested in the job. So that's a good that would have been a good possibility because, again, he probably was having conversations with Alabama, I would think, because he took the job not long after the season ended. But it's fine. The season's over. You did your job. You're done. Where we got? We got 7 minutes left. Horrible, the orange. Isn't it prime time anymore? Ruining traditions. Well, yeah, we've been ruining it for a while. I mean, this should have been a New Year's Day bowl game at night. Yes, it was historically, 8:30, 9 o'clock on New Year's night. On New Year's, when I was a kid, all the big bowl games were played on New Year's Day, except for that rare occasion where it came up against the NFL. They'd move it to the second, sometimes the 31st, whatever. But you had you got started with the Cotton Bowl in the afternoon. You had the Rose Bowl at 5 o'clock. You had the Sugar Bowl at 8 o'clock. You had the Orange Bowl at 9 o'clock. And then you had the Fiesta Bowl come in. And that was kind of a midday thing. But those were the big bowls. Fiesta Bowl was kind of the fifth major that came in. And you had your peripherals that played like New Year's Eve and the week leading up to New Year's, between Christmas and New Year's, the Peach Bowl, the Alamo Bowl, the Sun Bowl. I'm okay if those bowls stick around in some shape or form, but let's get rid of these ridiculous games. And so, yes, and the traditions have gone by since we started having championship games. Even the BCS era kind of messed with the bowl games as such, where they would break off and play, they might play the Rose Bowl 2 days after New Year's or whatever, just to have a standalone game. I don't care if you don't respect my opinion, because sometimes I don't either. I respect everybody's opinion, no matter how wrong it is. Kenny and I had to pick up the torch from Billy. Where's Billy? We haven't heard from Billy in Florida in a few days. I hope he's okay. The problem is everyone gets a trophy now. Well, there's a good point. Now, listen. Now, again, remember, there's a difference between, which I have a hard time convincing people like John DeLon of, I think, and some others. If you're on a team that wins a championship, you get a trophy because you're a part of that team, whether you played or not, right, Rick? My problem is, and again, expanding the playoff is not a participation trophy thing, because the only guys getting a trophy at the end are the guys that win. Everybody in that team gets a trophy. I get that, but no, come on. I got to make sure we get through these. I hope I can get through these in 5 minutes. Well, maybe we'll go a little long, and we'll probably lose our Roku audience at 10:30 if I have to go a little long. Kyle likes Purdy because he reads the game and not so quick. Not so quick. Not all quarterbacks can do that. I agree. He's a smart kid. And that's part of playing quarterback in the NFL, is reading defenses and improvising a bit. And he does that very well. Again, there are a lot of guys who have a lot more talent than Brock Purdy, who just are never going to reach that level of achievement and productivity, because they aren't smart enough. Alan's with us. Also, they mentioned that he wasn't covered either, so an illegal formation call would have been made. No, well, that's a good point. Actually, that's an excellent point. It would have been a penalty either way. In fact, there was 3 penalties they could have called. Legal man downfield if he had not reported. But he needed to be covered. If he was eligible. No, if he's in there, yeah, I agree. I'm losing my blah, 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 blah. But Alan, welcome, and hope I think you were feeling off. I hope you're feeling a bit better. Thunder up. Yeah, he kicked the Knicks' butts this week. Thunder played well. Thunder's playing well. Good job. You got some good teams right now. Alan, I want to know, and I'm going to go a little long. I shouldn't. Well, we'll lose the Roku audience. In fact, I'm going to probably say goodbye to them right now. I'll say goodbye to the Roku audience. You guys have a great day, and I'm going to continue here for a little bit on the other outlets, just because Alan's just come in and I see he's got a bunch of comments, and I want to keep your comments. So we'll go a little bit long today. It's the end of the year show. We're having a good time, and we'll keep on going for a bit. But we'll have to say goodbye to the Roku fans. You guys have a happy New Year, and we'll talk to you soon. The rest of you stick around. All right. So they're gone. Oh, maybe I got to. Okay, I think we're good. All right. So I started to say, Alan, we were talking, and you probably just joined us, about the carpetbagging quarterback on your team who got paid a decent NIL amount, from my understanding, to come to Oklahoma, gets offered more money by Oregon, and off he goes without even a second guess. So you can comment on that. We'll go a little bit long here today. You got my mind going in many directions, so it's time to mellow out with some fine mountain air. Don't light that air on fire, Kenny, but enjoy it. You have a happy New Year. Happy New Year to Paula and your family. And thank you, Kenny, for being such a loyal supporter as you all have been. And I appreciate that. And the fact that we can have these discussions, even when I get myself a little amped up, and we can have some fun and still part friends. That's the way it should be. Wouldn't it be a better world if we could all have these conversations and walk away friends? Not just about sports. There's Alec saying hi to Alan. Flacco. Yeah, see, I threw some stuff out there. That's why we got to stay long. What a bargain compared to the massage molester. You know what? Here's the thing. It didn't come up, and I tried to get it to come up in a conversation I was on. I think I was on a show Wednesday night. And they're talking about Joe Flacco and the fact that Amari Cooper likes him better than he liked the other quarterbacks on the team. And they didn't necessarily say Watson, but I think Watson was alluded to. And I wanted to say, well, why would anybody on that team respect Deshaun Watson with his reputation? Joe Flacco is at least as far as we know, an upstanding citizen, not out there, molesting everything that's ever given a massage. Thank you, Drew. I don't have to say his name. The massage molester has been compared to. Flacco's played great. I mean, look, he's thrown some interceptions. He's Joe Flacco, right? He's not going to change. That team, and Amari Cooper being out didn't affect him against the Jets. It will affect him if he's out longer. But this team, this defense, they do miss Nick Chubb. There's no doubt about that. Anybody would miss Nick Chubb. But this defense is good enough to help them win some playoff games. All you have to do if you're Joe Flacco is take care of the football, which, in fairness, he's not always done. Even this year, he does have 7 interceptions against maybe 12 touchdowns now. I don't remember what his numbers were after the Jet game. Going into it, I think it was 10-7. But he played well. And the team has responded to him, which happens. Now, it doesn't mean Joe Flacco's their future, but he's their present. And I think, given the state of the NFL and the AFC in particular, because I think the AFC is deeper, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the AFC is deeper when you get into the playoff teams. More teams could win. I think the NFC is better at the top, but I think the AFC is better overall, if that makes any sense. Also, Alex, if Dallas loses round 1, then McCarthy will get let go. If they lose in the first round, McCarthy's gone. I personally don't think it'll happen once Jerry feels like he can get the job done, despite his questionable calls at times. Listen, I think Mike McCarthy. I think this team is much better off for Mike McCarthy calling the plays, going back to calling the plays this year than they were before. I think he's done a really good job overall of play calling. They're not always executed well. I mean, they couldn't run the ball last night, but he knows enough not to try to pound it if they can. Plus, he's throwing the ball down the field more than ever, which opens up the middle of the field and the shorter passes and the ground game most of the time. And I like what they've done in Dallas this year. And I think Dallas is, listen, the Eagles are not as good as they were last year. The 49ers might be as good or better than they were last year, depending on Brock Purdy, and this was just an aberration last week. Cowboys have a chance. Long overdue for Jimmy, for sure, to get the ring. And a great moment for him last night. And Alan, I said earlier, he also showed a lot of class, giving Jerry credit. I mean, it's ironic that Jimmy, for years, first he chased Jimmy out of town. And I know Alan, you're a young guy, so you probably had to relive it through replays. But he chased Jimmy out of town because Jimmy was getting too much credit. Pretty much blackballed him because, Jimmy was getting too much credit. And then when Jimmy comes back, he shares the credit equally with Jerry Jones. So I think Jimmy Johnson showed a lot of class last night, and Jimmy Johnson's a great coach. He looks like he could be coaching today at 80 years old. Also, Lamb breaking Uncle single season receiving yards and catches record was fun to watch. It was fun, but I don't get all wrapped up in these receiving records and whatnot because passing records, the game's different today, right? The game's far different than when Michael Irvin was playing. And Michael Irvin's single season yardage totals to me are much more impressive than CeeDee Lamb's based on the way the game was played. I mean, don't forget, they had maybe arguably, well, not arguably, they had one of the top 5 running backs of all time in that backfield. So running the ball was big for that team. Plus, you had some other targets as well. So Michael Irvin's numbers still stand out to me a lot more than CeeDee Lamb's just because of the way the game's played today as compared to then. Alec, I think Jerry wants a championship game win, or he might start to push a few buttons that you need to keep Dan Quinn. Well, listen, Dan Quinn's your guy. If you want to get to a Super Bowl and blow a 28-3 lead with, 5 minutes left in the third quarter, Dan Quinn's your guy. Dan Quinn's a great defensive coordinator. And by the way, that's not the only game that they did this, the Falcons, when Quinn was the coach. In the 2 years, I think he was there 2 more years after they lost that Super Bowl to the Patriots, he must have lost 10 games that he had a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter. I don't think Dan Quinn's a great head coach. Dan Quinn is a great defensive coordinator. If Jerry makes him the head coach, he's making a mistake. And if Jerry wants to push buttons, Jerry should hire a GM. That's what Jerry should do. As I said, there's Bill Pulver. Hang on a second. I just might have asked where he was. And Alan, I'm going to tell you this too. The one common denominator in 30 years of no Super Bowls, not even coming close to a Super Bowl in 30 years, is Jerry Jones running the show. Jerry, step back, hire a real football guy to be your GM, and you might actually win. And maybe they'll win this year. But Happy New Year, Bill Pulver. Good to have you with us. We were just talking about you. You're like Rumpelstiltskin, apparently. Your name gets mentioned, you magically appear. Bill Pulver, Happy New Year. Where are you these days, Bill? You still in Florida? The best compliment I always told Mark Robertro, he's always consistent. Bad or good, he was consistent, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. And that's all you can ask for, right? If you're going to make a call one way, one time, make it every time that way. Even if you think it's wrong, at least you know what's coming. Right? Be consistent. Same thing with baseball umpires, as I see Drew's name pop up here. Your strike zone can be a little off of high, low, inside, outside, but just make the same call every time. If the game is so close and a ref or ump call changes the result, then the two teams didn't do enough to make sure that shouldn't have the case. Then let me read this again. If the game is so close that a ref call changes the final result, then the two teams didn't do enough to make sure that shouldn't have been the case. Well, you got me there, I guess. But my argument will always be the same. And again, we can phrase it any way we want, paraphrase my comments any way we want. But my premise will always be the same. I never have, and I never will blame a loss on the referee. Because there's always something I can look at on my team or any team and said, if they'd done this better, they would have won, and that play would not have affected them. And maybe two teams. But one of those teams is going to win. Unless you call this a tie. In a tie, I guess it could be both teams. Jimmy Johnson was the best talent evaluators and game coaches we have seen. I don't disagree. And it's a shame he did it for such a short time in Dallas, 5 years, I think. And I think maybe another, I don't think he was in Miami that long. I don't think he was there 5 years. One remarkable thing, and I don't know if he said it during a speech or I saw it during another interview. that while he was coach of the trading wasn't a big thing in the NFL. They just, you did your drafts and you did this and you did that. But they made, I believe he said, 150 trades while he was coach of the Cowboys. More than the rest of the league combined. And to use an example, the Giants in that time frame made one trade, and it was with the Cowboys. So again, he was a great evaluator. And he brought that up in talking about the Herschel Walker trade and how that did help turn the franchise around. But that wasn't the only thing. He said we moved a lot of guys, and which he had to do because he inherited the worst team in football. Of course it was we. JJ signed the checks, and they haven't sniffed a Super Bowl since the salary cap era. Well, listen, he said we. He didn't have to say we because, Jerry Johnson has been ripping Jimmy Johnson for years, and actually holding him hostage. There's no way he shouldn't have got this Ring of Honor thing years ago. So, again, he should have said we regardless who signed the checks. He didn't have to say we. He was right there and he had his chance if he wanted to. What's Jimmy going to do? Or what's Jerry going to do? If Jimmy went out there last night and said, you know what? This should have happened 25 years ago, Jerry. F you, blah, 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 blah. But he didn't. He showed a lot of class. Mark Robertshaw, thanks for, I guess that's about the comment about his consistent refereeing. Regardless of the sport, officials occasionally have an off day. Like you said, consistency is very important. I agree, Mark. Officials do occasionally have off days. The problem with this all came about because of our discussion about the NFL. And welcome, Mark. Happy New Year to you and all of you again. I'll say again before I sign off here today. Here at some point, I want to get through all your comments, and you guys are really fired up at the end of the year. It's good. The problem is the NFL is consistently bad. Every game there's bad calls. And part of it is because of the rules committee and some of the things they're putting in about quarterback sacks. And I can't land on a guy when I tackle him. Well, where am I supposed to go? I can only hit him in about a 3-inch area here and a 3-inch area here. And I can't land on top of him. So the roughing the quarterback calls are egregiously bad. A lot of the pass interference calls are bad. They're just bad. And they're not consistent. To Rick's point, you don't know what's going to get called and what's not. So and again, that's one of the things wrong with the NFL. Red flag replay. Were you not willing, were I not riling against the darkness and telling me that 29 players didn't show up for? I was. What are you talking about? Were I not? I don't know what riling against the darkness is, but I'm telling you that 29, close to 29 players didn't show up, and they had only 29 scholarship athletes available for the game. I'm not sure where that comes from. I'm here, back home. Happy New Year. So everybody be careful. Billy, I was going to say Slocum. Hope you're okay, Billy. Another thoughts out, and I meant Billy Pulver. Glad to have you back here. Billy Slocum, good friend who's still battling in the hospital from the injuries from getting hit by a car on December 8th, I think. Had some rough times this week, so keep your prayers. I've mentioned him a few times on my shows. Keep him in your prayers this week as well, if you will. Had some rough times this week and almost lost him one day, from what I understand. Billy's he's a fighter, man. So keep some good thoughts for him. Great show. Thank you, Alec. Thank you for your contribution. Kenny, great job. When are we going for drinks? Soon. I got a busy freaking January, man. I'm telling you. I got to go to Vegas for work the week of the 15th. I'll be gone the whole week. Maybe we do something the end of January because February's gone. I got to go away for a wedding. I got to go to Atlanta on the 5th for work. I come back. I've got a wedding that weekend. No, that's in January. I got the wedding. Oh, I go on vacation. Yeah, I come back from Atlanta, and I got 2 days home, and then we're off for vacation for 2 weeks. So I got 1 week left in February. Man, I'm old. I gotta slow down. I'm not supposed to be speeding up. I'm supposed to be slowing down. We'll figure something out. I don't know that I want to go to. BJ's has kind of been dead to me for the last I don't know, 9 months or whatever it was. We had a couple of really bad experiences. Maybe not. The bar's probably fine, but we'll do Druthers. Maybe we'll do Druthers up here in Clifton Park. Really good spot. Watson, happy ender. Oh, what? The happy ender. Listen, unfortunately, we can throw my owner into that conversation as well, Mark. Kenny Gifford, we had a great night over a year ago, and it was good to see old friends and meet new friends. It was actually, God, it was probably 2 years ago, Rick. We'll definitely do something here. I know I wanted to do it during college football. Weekends were just getting so busy, and then NFL, and it's hard because I didn't want to be out both Saturday and Sunday. And anyway, we'll do it. We'll figure something out. If you guys are amenable to the Clifton Park area, the Druthers up here is pretty good. We can go down to BJ's if it's more convenient for people, or find another place down there too. I mean, it's probably fine. They had some health problems and whatnot, but we'll definitely do something. There's the Back It Up binge broadcast. Joining late. You're lucky I'm on late. Should have been off 16 minutes ago. We had to sign off the Roku people, but welcome in. Good to have you with us. Happy New Year to you guys. Binge. Alan, they can't run the ball, period. Yeah, I know. It's a pretty good offensive line. I don't get it. Let's go Cardinals. We didn't get any picks today. I don't even care. Love seeing the old Cowboy last night. Old Cowboy. It was nice to see it. Staubach. What was wrong with Binge? I don't know if you're a Cowboys fan or not. I know Alan is. What was up with Randy White? He looked like he was in La La Land. He kept talking to Troy Aikman while they were introducing all the players, and Troy's like, I got to get introduced here. They were calling his name, Randy White, and he wasn't even paying attention. It seemed like he was kind of out of it. Maybe he was overserved. I don't know. Quinn should stay as defensive coordinator. Quinn should not. He's one of those guys. He's a great coordinator and not such a good head coach. There's a lot of those guys. Know your calling, man. He's making plenty of money. Now, maybe he wants to prove, Atlanta was a fluke. And he didn't. It's not like he didn't do anything in Atlanta. He got him to a Super Bowl. But unfortunately, after they blew that game, which he's got to take some responsibility for, sorry, that kind of became a calling card because they blew lots of games in the 2 years that followed with big leads. 28-3. Ouch. It probably still hurts him. Makes me feel really good. Anytime I see that combination 2-8-3, I get really excited. You took offense to my opinion on Florida State not showing up. Oh, I did. Yes, I said the guys that showed up shouldn't be. I didn't take offense, by the way. I took umbrage. I don't take offense to anything. No, I was only pointing out, Rick, that you can't put the not showing up opinion on the guys that showed up. They were there. They did the best they could. They didn't have more in them. That's been my point this whole show. You had a glorified best high school team in the country with a bunch of 5-star and 4-star recruits trying to play against the defending national champion. There was never going to be any other result than what happened. It's not their fault. They were deserted by the best players on the team. That's all I'm saying. And again, I don't take offense. Umbrage. Umbrage is a better word. Probably means the same thing. Creekside. Yes. What about it? That's where I go to watch football. That's where Billy had his accident, unfortunately. But I'm not sure what else we got going there. Golf first before drinks. Maybe so. If you're coming up, Neil. Well, we can't play golf unless we play inside. And if we're going to do that, we can go to someplace like the Bunker. Happy New Year, Drew. I'll be signing off here in a couple of minutes anyway. Randy White. Is it CTE? Because, man, he was out of it last night. Is that a fact, Kenny? Or I'm hoping Alan or one of the Cowboy guys can help me. A good coordinator can, this is Drew, not gone yet. A good coordinator can be a good head coach. I didn't say none of them could be. They provided they hire an excellent coordinator on the other side and let them do their thing. I agree. Hell, Bill Belichick was a great defensive coordinator and he became a great coach. So I'm not saying everybody, but there's a lot of coaches that have shown, Josh McDaniel, Todd Bowles, Dan Quinn, at least up till this point. The list goes on and on. Yes, there's a lot of guys that have made it. There are more that have failed than have contributed. I mean, almost every head coach who's been successful has been in a coordinator. Well, at one point or another. Some don't rise above position coaches. It's funny. As a rule, the best coordinators, Joe Judge aside, the best coordinators who have become head coaches are basically special team coaches, special team coordinators. Happy New Year to you as well and your family, Rick. Neil, Happy New Year to you and your family. Linda, Florida State head coach should be fired. Oh, stop it. That's Mac. I know that's not you, Linda. That head coach should not be fired. I'm getting ready to. I did sign off at Roku at 10:30, by the way, Mac. We went quite long today. You should have been around the whole show. He should be fired. 29 freaking, come on. As I said, glorified high school team with 4- and 5-star recruits won't beat any Division I power conference football team. None. This team had no chance for the beginning. They knew it. And the head coach shouldn't be fired because 28 or 9 selfish kids walked away. No. Wrong. They need to change the rules. Happy New Year, Alan. Happy New Year, Mac and Linda. I know you wanted to come in here and just fire me up before I signed off today. So we went about 25 minutes long, but that's okay. It's our last show of the year. Want to wish everybody a happy New Year again. I want to thank everybody for participating, not just today, but all year long. You guys make this show my favorite show of the year, or the week, the year. Make sure you tune in Wednesday. We'll have the college basketball huddle. Wednesday, we'll be back with Are You Serious? Hopefully on Friday. And right back here on Sunday with the Sunday Stream of Consciousness, which has become exactly that. And I love it. Great job, guys. What happened to my music? Oh, there we go. Guys, have a great holiday. Happy New Year's to you and yours. Have a safe and happy one. Enjoy it. We're going to go out to see some comedy tonight and hopefully have some dinner. You guys have a great Sunday. Keith Engel from TGI Sports Talks. Sunday Stream of Consciousness. Have a great New Year. Bye-bye.